We're talking about the bright side of the government shutdown. Welcome to Opinion Journal. The president going to meet this evening with congressional leaders from both parties to try and avert the shutdown. But while we can enjoy the shutdown, Holman Jenkins, our Business World columnist, I was hoping we could enjoy it because at least we'd save a few bucks. That's probably a vain hope because they end up generally restoring all the funding once the shutdown ends. But you've written today about another element to this, and I don't know whether we want to call it a small victory, a victory in terms of raising issues, but you don't see this as the disaster some other people do, or the example of dysfunctional government.
Well, one reader accused me of curmudgeonly optimism, but I see this as just one step in a train of long fights that are going to be over the future of the entitlement state in this country, which we clearly can't afford, and which we have to do something, or we're going to have a very bad fiscal and financial and economic crisis one of these days. So take it in that vein. This is at least raising the issues, and I'm very happy that there is a large vocal segment of our political establishment that wants to bring these issues to the fore. And the Tea Party and Ted Cruz and those folks are at least doing that. I might not agree with their tactics or all the messaging, but at least they are raising the issues, and that's excellent.
Okay, now we're going to hear from Speaker Nancy Pelosi now. This is a clip that I think is largely echoed by much of the American media as they try to shape the public perception of what's happening now in Washington. Here's a former Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, now a Democratic leader in the House.
They're anti-government ideologues who are, it's the Tea Party shutdown of government.
Okay, so it's essentially the Tea Party has shut down the government. They're ideologically driven. Presidents, or certainly people who work for the president, have gone further in sort of comparing the Republicans almost to terrorists and saying he won't negotiate with them. As you point out, he's not all that willing to negotiate at other times either. So
it's an absurd analogy. Politics is about negotiation.
Right.
Sure, you can decide you're not going to, your opponents, your critics, people have different views of you, are terrorists if they want to negotiate with you. But that's ridiculous. We have to bargain in our society. That's how our politics works. And I hope that something will come out of this that will say, you know, in the end, okay, the president is willing to talk to Republicans about the long-term future of taxes and spending in this country, because that's what we really need. He promised before the election that he would be championing some kind of grand bargain with Republicans. That, of course, disappeared instantly. There was never any spending that he didn't like and didn't say was sacrosanct. So let's hear, finally, him put some things on the table about how we're going to resolve this issue.
Last thing, you talk about the absence of certain voices in this debate. There are a lot of full-time scolds in Washington who talk about the need to rein in entitlements, and I think they're often right. But as you point out, this fight now is basically Republicans saying we don't want to create a new entitlement, and yet we're not hearing from Erskine Bowles, Alan Simpson. I mean, why aren't they joining with the Republicans and saying not another entitlement?
That's why Obamacare makes such a great target, because it doesn't have any beneficiaries yet who can have something taken away from them. But of course, all these deficit scolds, as you properly call them, don't want to get their hands dirty with real politics, and they don't want to associate with people, you know, with Southern accents who talk in strong terms about this stuff, you know. And that's too bad, because it is a political fight. You got to get in there and get your hands dirty.
Yeah, and again, this is not, we're not speaking of the tactics and whether the Republicans will win or not. I think you probably would be about as optimistic as I am that they're going to extract real reform from the president. But I think you raise a good point. It's important to remember the underlying point here is a good one, which is we don't need another entitlement.
We can't afford another one. We can't afford the ones we have. That's the point. And I wish they would make that a little more clearly. They would draw the connection between Obamacare and the larger connection. I wish Republicans would do that.
Okay, well, they may have a few days to do that, assuming there's no deal tonight. Thanks, Holman.
My pleasure.